Now, before we go to the 7th chapter, I want to explain the handout with the heading Note for Rupa Pavatikama. That is the last but one section in the 6th chapter. This chart gives some additional information on when and to which kind of beings the Rupa Kalapas arise and which can be deficient and so on. So the first is for Kama Vachara Bhumi, so those beings in the central plains. And there are four, now here, three kinds of beings: moisture-born, spontaneous-born, and womb-born. So moisture-born means those who are born of moisture, like insects, like mosquitoes. So they are called moisture-born. At the moment of Patisandhi, there arise in them Chakku, Sota, Ghana, Jiva, Kaya, Bhava, and Vatu. So 6 decades. But Chakku, Sota, Ghana, and Bhava can be deficient. So sometimes they may not have Chakku, sometimes they may not have Sota, and so on. That is at the moment of relinking. And Pavati means through life. So in life, that means after relinking, all rupas except those that are deficient can arise. And then spontaneous born, that means they are born as a grown-up beings. Now here 3 kinds of spontaneous born are mentioned. The first one is for devas, celestial beings. At the time of relinking, there are all 7 decades: Chakku, Sota, Ghana, Jiva, Kaya, Bhava, and Vatu. So there is no deficiency for them because they are born of very strong karma. And in life, all rupas arise in them. And then spontaneous born in apaya, the 4 woeful states. So for those who are born in the 4 woeful states, at the moment of Patisandhi, the 7 decades arise, but among them Chakku, Sota, and Bhava can be deficient. So sometimes they may take conception without Chakku and so on. And at Pavati, all rupas except those that are deficient. And then the last spontaneous born is human beings. It is said that human beings are born spontaneously at the beginning of the world, because there were no human beings at that time, and so the Brahmas die from their Brahma world and are born as human beings. So at that time, human beings are born spontaneously. So for them, Chakku, Sota, Ghana, Jihva, Kaya, and Vatu, these 6 decades arise, but not Bhava, because it is said that they had no sex at that time. Only after some time did they arise. And at Pavati, that is in life, all rupas except 2 bhavas can arise. And then womb-born beings. They include beings like human beings and birds and other animals. So at Patisandhi, there are only 3 decades: Kaya, Bhava, and Vatu. And Bhava sometimes deficient. So Bhava can be deficient sometimes. Those who are born without gender, without sex. And at Bhavati, all rupas. But Chakku, Sota, Ghana and Bhava can be deficient. Deficient means when it is time for Chakku Dekha to arise, it does not arise, and so on. So those are those that are called born blind, born deaf, and so on. So these are for beings in Kamavajara realms. For beings in Rupavajara realm, except asanyasatas, except mindless beings, at Patisandhi, at the moment of relinking, Chakku, Sota, Vatu, Dekha, and Jivita Nonat. So these four groups arise. At Bhavati, or during life, those four decades plus six groups born of Chaita and 4 groups born of Utu. So these also arise. So at Bhavati, they have 4 plus 6 plus 4, 14 groups of matter. And they are 23 rupas. And for beings in Rupa Vajra realm of mindless beings, at Patisandhi, only Jivita Navaka. So at Patisandhi, there is only one nonet, and that is Jivita Navaka. And at Bhavati, Jivita Navaka plus Subdataka, pure octet, and Lahuda Diga Dasaka of Utuja Kalabas. So for mindless beings, at Patisandhi there are only 9 kinds of material properties, and during life there are 17 material properties. So 23 and 17 you can get from the big chart. So these are the decades which arise at Patisandhi and which arise during life, and there are some which can be deficient. So now we go to the 7th chapter. Now with the six chapters we have covered, the author described all 4 ultimate realities, Chaita, Chaitasika, Rupa and Nibbana. So he could finish his book here if he wanted to, but he wanted to give some more information about the ultimate realities he had described in the previous chapters. So we have 3 more chapters. Now this chapter called Compendium of Categories, or Samuccaya Sangha, gives us different names for the ultimate realities we have already studied. So it is like some special names or terminology for the ultimate realities. And here at the beginning, the author said there are 72 kinds of entities. Chaita taken as 1. Chaitasika 52. And Rupa taken as 18, because the first 18 are the real rupas, and the others are not real rupas. They do not have, they are not the object of vipassana meditation. So here, as as the categories that are object of vipassana meditation, they are excluded. So the first 18 of the 21 material properties are taken here. And then the last one is Nibbana 1. So there are altogether 72 kinds of entities that have their own characteristic and that are capable of becoming the object of vipassana meditation. So when you practice vipassana meditation, you do not take the later 10 material properties as object. So 72 of them, actually the others will also be treated here and there, but these are the 72 that are prominent, and so they will be treated in this chapter. And the first is asavas. Now you look at the chart and you see asava. So there are 4 asavas. Now what are the asavas? In the manual, it is translated as taints. There are 4 taints. And then the others. So sometimes the asava is translated as cankers, and some also translated it as flux. Now the name asava is originally the name of the intoxicating drink, fermented drink. When you want to make an intoxicating drink, you have to ferment it, you have to make it for a long time. So the asavas are like intoxicating drinks, meaning that they have long been with us. They have been with us for a long, long time, from the beginningless or from the unknown beginning up till now, and they will be with us until we reach arahantship or we reach Buddhahood. So they have been with us for a long, long time. They have been something like fermented through all this time. So asavas are also like that. Lobha, ditthi and moha are always with us. So they are called asavas. So here the meaning is those that are like fermented drinks. The other meaning is flowing out. Now, if you have a sore, then you may have discharges like blood or pus from the sores. So in the same way, and the lobha, ditthi and moha flows out of the six doors. So when we see something and we have attachment, that means lobha is flowing out of or flowing through the eye door. When we hear something and we like it or we dislike it, then the lobha or dosa are said to flow through or flow out of these door, out of the ear door and so on. So they are like discharges from the soul, and so they are called asava. And also they are called asava because they, by way of realms, they arise up to the highest realm. They arise even in Nivasanya, Nasanya, Yatana realm, the fourth Arubhavajara realm. And by way of Dhamma, they can take as object up to Gotrabhu. That means Lobha can take, what is the object of Lobha? You remember the third chapter? All mundane, right? Mundane Chetas, Chetasikas, and Rupa. So, Lobha can take all mundane Chetas, Chetasika, and Rupas as object. So that means it can take Gotrabhu as object, and also it can take Vardhana, that is before the second, third, and fourth magas. Gotrabhu is called Vardhana at that time, right? So, by way of RAM, it flows up to the highest RAM, and by way of Dhamma, it flows up to Gotrabhu. So it is called asava. And there are 4 asavas mentioned here. But in the suttas, usually 3 asavas are mentioned. But we must take them to mean the 4 asavas mentioned here. So we can translate them as cankas or fluxes or, I don't know, oozing. So it is better to call them asava, so we do not misunderstand. There are 4 asavas mentioned here. The first one is kama sava, the second bhava sava, the third one dittha sava, the fourth one avidya sava. Now kama sava, it is the taint of sensual desire. Actually, the desire, it is actually lobha. So the attachment to sensual desires or things, objects of senses, is called kama sava. And then bhava sava, you know bhava, existence, to continued existence. So attachment to continued existence is called bhava sava. And dittha sava, ditti asava. So this is the asava of wrong view. The wrong view itself is asava. And the last one is avidya sava. So there are 4 asavas: kama sava, bhava sava, dittha sava, avidya sava. The taint of sensual desire, the taint of attachment to existence, the taint of wrong views, and the taint of ignorance. Now, there are what is called rupa bhava and also arupa bhava. So attachment to rupa bhava and arupa bhava are included in bhava sava. And also attachment to jhanas is included in bhava sava. And also attachment that accompanies the eternity view is also called bhava sava. So bhavasava has many identifications. But in reality, it is lobha, attachment to rupa and arupa existence, attachment to jhanas, and attachment which accompanies the wrong view, which take things to be permanent. Now, with each of these, we must identify the paramattha dhammas. So, kamasava is what? Lobha. And bhavasava is also lobha. Ditthasava is ditthi, and avijjasava is moha. So, although there are 4 asavas, according to ultimate reality, or in essence, there are only 3 asavas, or 3 dhammas, which are called asavas. They are lobha, ditthi, and moha. So in the chart, and the number 3 put just in front of this column means that the ultimate realities are 3. The ultimate realities which are called asavas are 3. And the circles, by looking at circles, you know that moha, lobha, and dosa, these 3 are asavas. And the individual ones, you look at the squares. So the squares are individual ones, and the circles show the paramattha dhamma, or the cetasikas, or the ultimate realities they represent. Now the next is ogha. Now there are 4 oghas. Ogha is translated as flood. So these lobha, ditthi, and moha are called ogha, or floods, because they overwhelm beings, and they can take beings with them down to 4 woeful states, or they can make beings sink to 4 woeful states, and so they are called ogha. Now, when there is flood, it can take everything with it, and it will make things sink or drown. So, in the same way, the lobha, ditthi, and moha, when they arise, can take beings down to 4 woeful states, and so they are called ogha. And there are 4 oghas. So the flood can be very devastating. There were floods in other states of the country a few years ago, and even the whole house was taken by the flood and floated down. And also there were floods in Southern California sometime. So you can see how dangerous these floods are. And maybe lobha, ditthi, and moha are more dangerous than floods. Okay, how many oghas are there? 4. Kamoga, bhavoga, dikthoga, avijjoga. So that means kama ogha, bhava ogha, ditthi ogha, avijja ogha. And their identifications are the same. So, kamoga is what? Lobha. And bhavoga is lobha. And dikthoga is ditthi. And avijjoga is moha. So there are 4 oghas, but in reality there are only 3. And they are moha, lobha, and ditthi. Next group, yoga. Now please do not confuse this with the yoga now popular in the world. There are different meanings. Okay, yoga. how are they translated? Bond. So there are 4 bonds. Bonds of sensual desire, bond of attachment to existence, a bond of wrong views, and the bond of ignorance. So they are the same as the asavas. But they are called bond because they, what do you call them? Yeah? They attach beings to samsara, and they don't let beings to get out of samsara. So long as there are these 3, tying is ganta. We will come to ganta also. So, what do you call it? Sometimes the translators as nuts. Ganta is translated as not here. Okay. So it is something like, when you put, how do you call that? An ox to the cart. You put the ox to the cart, right? Yoke. Right, yoke. So yoking. Yoga means yoking. So these 3 yoke us to the samsara. So long as there are these 3, we will not get out of samsara. So long as the bullock is yoked, it cannot get out of that yoke, and it must go on and on and on. So in the same way, we'll have to go on and on and on so long as we have these yokes on our shoulders. So they are 4 in number, and they are Kama Yoga, Bhava Yoga, Ditti Yoga, and Avidya Yoga. So they mean the same thing. Attachment to objects of senses, and attachment to existence, attachment to wrong view, and wrong view and ignorance. So Kama Yoga, in reality Kama Yoga is Lobha, and Bhava Yoga is Lobha, and Ditti Yoga is Ditti, and Avidya Yoga is Moha. So in reality there are 3 yogas, and they are Moha, Lobha, and Ditti. It is important to know these terms because they will be used in the suttas. So you will find the use of these words in the suttas. So when you read suttas, you may come across the word yoga or oga and so on. So it is important to understand them, what they mean, because yoga by itself you don't know what it means, right? Or oga, you may find the word oga or flat, and you may be wondering what is a flat, right? So when you understand according to this manual, then you understand it clearly. Lobha, Ditti, and Moha are meant here. You understand it. So it is important to understand these terms. Our next group is Ganta. And Ganta is translated here as knots, tyings. So they tie beings to samsara. And also here it is explained as they tie namakaya to rupakaya, something like that. And they tie beings to samsara. And here in the name of the Gantas, the word kaya is added. If you look at it, abhijja, kaya, ganta. So kaya is added. And it is explained in the note. Here the term body, kaya, applies to both the mental and physical body in the sense of an aggregation. So here kaya does not mean physical kaya. Actually it is a group or a aggregation. So abhijja kaya gandha means the bodily knot of covetousness. Now here, we must understand this to be different from covetousness we met in the 5th chapter. In the 5th chapter, among the 10 unwholesome causes of action, there is covetousness. You know there are 3 karmas, right? 3 kinds of karmas. Kaya karma, bodily karma, vachi karma, verbal or vocal karma, and mano karma, mental karma. Among the 3 mano karma, the first one is what? Abhijja. There, abhijja means covetousness for other person's belongings. You want the other person's belonging to be your belongings. You want other person's property to be your property. So it is called visama lobha. It is unjust lobha, something like that. But here, any lobha is called abhijja. Not only the abhijja mentioned in the 5th chapter, but any attachment is called abhijja kaya gandha here. And the next one is vyapada kaya gandha, the bodily knot of ill will. So vyapada means dosa. That is why in reality it is dosa. So here also you understand dosa in many forms. And the third one is silabhada paramasa kaya gandha, the bodily knot of adherence to rites and ceremonies. Now, silabhada, sila is one word, and vata, it comes from vata. So when these 2 words are compounded, the compound word becomes silabhada. Sila means habit, and vata means practice or something. And paramasa means understanding wrongly. So wrong understanding of sila and vata is called kaya gandha. That means the wrong understanding that the sila and vata can lead us to purification of mind and lead us to end all suffering. Now here we must understand the sila and vata, because the English translation as adherence to rites and ceremonies is not so satisfactory. It is explained in the commentaries that sila here means the habit of cattle, the habit of dogs, and so on. And vata means the same thing. So what it really means here is, if you believe that if you behave in the way cows behave, if you live like cows live, if you eat like cows eat, and so on, then you will get freedom from mental defilements and you will get out of this samsara. So if you believe like that, then that is silabhada paramasa. The same with if you believe that if you behave like a dog, if you eat like a dog, if you sleep like a dog, and so on, and that practice will lead you to purification of mind and so on. So if you believe that in that way, then you have this silabhada paramasa. So we must understand this, as I have explained here, following the explanation given in the commentaries. Because if we just say rites and ceremonies, we will have many questions. Bowing down to the Buddha, chanting, sharing merit, and so on. They are some rites or ceremonies, right? But here, sila and vada do not mean those. So, sila here means the habit of or behavior of, say, cattle, dogs, animals, and others. I think you remember about two men who went to the Buddha and asked about this practice of cow and the practice of dog, right? Whether it is true that they will gain purification and so on. And Buddha said, if you practice to the full the practice of a cow, you will become a cow, and if you practice to the full the habit of a dog, you will become a dog, and if you cannot practice it in full, you will go to hell or something like that. So, such belief, the belief that it can lead to nibbana, it can lead to purification of mind, is called Silabbata Paramasa. If we extend this to include some other things, we may say that if you believe that dana alone will lead you to enlightenment, or sila alone will lead you to enlightenment, it's also Silabbata Paramasa. Because dana alone cannot lead you, directly lead you to enlightenment. Sila alone cannot do that, right? You have to practice bhavana, you have to practice vipassana meditation to reach those states. So if you believe that just by, say, chanting, just by giving, just by making donations, and just by listening to the Dhamma and so on, and you can get enlightenment, then you have this Silabbata Paramasa, although you do not believe in the practices of cows and dogs and so on. So, and this is a wrong view, and so it is actually deity. And the last one, number 4, is Idang Satcha Bhi Nivesa Kaya Gandha, a long word. Ida means this. Satcha means true. Abhinivesa means wrong view. So a dogmatic view that this alone is true. So this only is true and others are false. So if you take that way, then you have this gantha, this knot, that is, what's that? The bodily knot of dogmatic belief that this alone is the truth. Now there is a question. We think Buddhism to be true, right? And others to be not true. What about that? Now it is explained in some books, in Burmese books, that it should be understood with regard to wrong views. Say you have one wrong view and you think that this alone is true and others are false, then you fall into this knot. But you are a Buddhist and you said, Buddhism alone is true and others are false. That is not falling into this knot. That is how they explained. This is a difficult question. Okay, so there are these 4 knots of ganthas. So abhijja kaya gantha, since it is attachment, it is loba. And Vyapada Kaya Gandha, it is dosa, ill will. And Silabbata Paramasa Kaya Gandha, it is a wrong view. And Idam Satya Nivesa Kaya Gandha, also wrong view. So, although there are 4 Gandhas, in reality, or according to the ultimate reality, there are only 3. They are Loba, Ditthi, and Dosa. Then Upadana. You're familiar with this word, Upadana. Clinging or grasping. Upa means firmly. Adana means taking. So taking firmly. The upadana is compared to a snake swallowing let's say a mouse or something. So once it has taken in its mouth, it will not let it go again. So in the same way, when loba reaches the stage of upadana, then you cannot give up. So this firmly strong attachment is called, strongly taking the object is called upadana. So the first one is kamupadana, kama upadana. It can be explained as kama, which is upadana, or upadana of kama. You can take it in 2 ways. Because kama here means sensual desire. So the desire itself is clinging. So clinging as desire, or it is clinging to sense objects. Means the same thing. And ditthi upadana, again, ditthi upadana. Ditthi, which is upadana. When you have a wrong view, you take it firmly. So, ditthi is an upadana. Or you may say, the previous ditthi is a condition for a later ditthi. And so in that case, you can explain it as upadana of ditthi, grasping of wrong view, or grasping the wrong view. The third one is the same as the number 3 gandha. Silabbatu upadana, silabbata upadana. So when you take firmly that practices of these cows and dogs and so on will lead to freedom from mental defilements, then you have this silabbatu upadana. And the 4th one is attavadu upadana. Now, attavadu upadana means what? Clinging to a doctrine of self. So, atta means atta and vada means saying or something, or opinion. So, opinion of atta, saying that there is atta. And clinging to that doctrine of or opinion of atta is attavadu upadana. Now, with regard to this last one, attavadu upadana, there is mention of sakkaya ditthi in the manual. So, manual page 267, about the middle of the page. Clinging to a doctrine of self is the adoption of personality view, sakkaya ditthi. So I want you to be familiar with this word, sakkaya ditti. Sakkaya means existing kaya, and ditti means a wrong view. So wrong view about existing kaya. That means wrong view about atta. The identification of any of the 5 aggregates as a self or the accessories of a self. So one may say rupa is atta, or he may say rupa is a property of atta, something like that. That means taking 5 aggregates as a self or the accessories of a self. One regards materiality as self or self as possessing materiality. So this Sakkaya deity is mentioned in the suttas as well as in Abhidhamma. But here in the book it says the suttas mention 20 types of personality view. But actually it is not only in the suttas, but in the Abhidhamma itself, these 20 types of Sakkaya deity are mentioned. So these are obtained by considering each of the 5 aggregates in 4 ways. So considering or taking the 5 aggregates in 4 ways. And they are: 1 regards materiality as self. So 1 regards rupa as self. That is one form of wrong view. Or self as possessing materiality. Now, when you see a flame, and you think that the flame and the color are identical, you fall into something like taking rupa as atta. So the flame is one thing and the color is another. So they are 2 different things. But we think that the flame is the color and the color is a flame. So in the same way, when we take rupa to be self, then this becomes a wrong view. And then self as possessing materiality. The commentary gives the analogy of a tree and its shadow. A tree, the shadow is a possession of a tree. So in the same way, rupa has atta or something like that. So they take rupa as something and they think that this rupa possesses something which is called atta. The third one is material as in self. That means there is a self in matter, self in rupa. The analogy is a flower and the smell, the scent. The scent is in the flower. The smell is in the flower. So the flower is one thing, the smell is another thing. And they take that rupa to be in the self. So they something like taking smell to be in the flower. And the fourth one is self as in materiality. It is the other way around. Now here the analogy is a gem and a casket. So there is a gem in the casket. So gem is in the casket. Atta is in rupa. So if you know these four kinds of wrong view with regard to rupa, you understand others with regard to Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara and Vijnana. So again, let us go back. The first one is what? Rupa is self. if we take rupa itself, this is the first form of wrong view. Then if we take rupa possesses self, rupa has self, then this is a second kind of wrong view. If we take rupa in self, so there is self in the, there is rupa in the self. That is the third kind. And if we take, there is self in rupa, this is a fourth kind. So the view of Atta can have different aspects. Rupa is Atta, rupa has Atta, rupa in Atta, and Atta in rupa. The same with Vedana is Atta, Vedana has Atta, Vedana in Atta, and Atta in Vedana, so on. So there are altogether 20 kinds of Sakkaya deities. So you will find this the mention of Sakkaya deity in your readings, and they are always mentioned as 20 Sakkaya deities. So, and then here the author gives in the manual, the reference is given as M44. That means Majjhima Nikaya 44th Sutta. And then Roman numeral 1 and 300. That means the first volume, page 300. But I think that may refer to the Pali text, not to translation. But if you want the translation, you go to 44th Sutta. Or in Dhammasangani, you find it. So the clinging to sense pleasures is a manifestation of greed and so on. And that is the identification. So kamupadana, clinging to sensual things or sensual desire, it is lobha. And ditthubharana is deity, wrong view. Silabhadubharana, again wrong view. Attavadubharana, again wrong view. So although there are 4 ubharanas, 4 clingings, there are only 2 in reality. And they are lobha and deity. Okay, now we come to Nivarana. Nivarana, hindrances. There are 6 Nivaranas here, although we are familiar with only 5. Nivarana means what? Hindrances or obstacles. They obstruct the way to a heavenly rebirth and to the attainment of Nibbana. Not only that, they are obstructions to attaining jhanas also. So the obstacles to jhana, obstacles to magga, obstacles to rebirth in heavenly realms is called nivarana. Sometimes the commentaries explain it by the word like enveloping, maybe overwhelming or something like that. So there are 6 nivaranas mentioned in this manual. The first one is kamachanda nivarana. So kamachanda nivarana means sensual desire for objects of senses. The second is Vyapada Nivarana. That is ill will, the obstruction of ill will, or the hindrance of ill will. So, and any kind of dosa is called Vyapada. And then the third is Tina and Meda. Now, they are two different or two separate mental states or mental factors. But they are here joined as one, or they are mentioned as one Nivarana. The next is Uddhacca Kukkucca Nivarana. Here also, Uddhacca is one thing, one Cetasika, and Kukkucca is another Cetasika. But they are taken to be one hindrance here. And the fifth one is Vicikicca Nivarana, that is doubt. And the sixth one is Avijja Nivarana. So now Kamachana, you know Kamachana. So Kamachana is lobha, attachment. So attachment to anything. And Vyapada is ill will, so anger, hate, depression, all these, and even fear. It's called Vyapada. Now, Tina and Meda, two sloth and torpor, two different things, and Uddhacca and Kukkucca, restlessness and remorse, two different things, and Vicikicca, doubt, and Avijja, ignorance. So, in reality, or according to ultimate realities, there are not 6, but 8 Cetasikas that are called Nivaranas. So what are the 8? Moha, Uddhacca, Lobha, Dosa, Kukkucca, Tina, Midha, Vicikicca. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there are 8 dhammas or 8 cetasikas that are called nivaranas. Although there are 8, when describing nivaranas, it's always mentioned as 6. So Tina and Mida are mentioned together, and Uddhacca and Kukkucca are mentioned together. Why? It's explained in the manual. So please go to page 268. Altogether, 8 cetasikas are included among the hindrances. In 2 cases, however, a pair of mental factors is counted as a single hindrance. So, Tina and Meda are counted as one hindrance, and Uddhacca and Kukkucca are counted as another one hindrance. The Abhidhamma commentaries explain that sloth and torpor and restlessness and worry are joined into compounds because of the similarity in their respective functions, respective conditions, and respective antidotes. So these 3 things you must remember: function, condition, and antidote or opposite. Because these two each have similar functions, similar conditions, and similar antidotes or similar opposites, they are taken as one hindrance, although in fact they are two. Now, sloth and torpor both have the function of engendering mental sluggishness. Now, their function is producing laziness, mental sluggishness. So both of them have this function. So they have the same function. And then they are conditioned by laziness and drowsiness. So they are caused by laziness and drowsiness. So they have the same or similar conditions or causes. And then they are countered by arousing energy. That means virya is their opposite. So long as you have virya, you will not have tina and metta. Once you let virya go, tina metta may come in. So tina and metta have these similar function, similar condition, and similar opposites. So they are taken to be one mental hindrance, although in reality they are two separate mental factors. Similarly with uddhacca and kukkujja. Now, restlessness and worry, or uddhacca and kukkujja, share the function of engendering disquietude. So they make us disquiet when we have these uddhacca and kukkujja in our minds. So now uddhacca is one cetasika and kukkujja is another cetasika, right? Uddhacca arises with how many cetas? All 12. And kukkujja? Yeah, only 2, right? Yeah. So they are different cetasikas and they accompany, let's say, different cetas. But these two have the function of engendering disquietude. That means when they arise in our minds are not quiet. And they are conditioned by disturbing thoughts. That means thoughts about loss of wealth, thoughts about loss of relatives, and so on. So when we think of those thoughts, we are agitated. So they are conditioned by such disturbing thoughts. And they are countered by the development of calm, samatha. So the opposite of uddhacca and kukkujja is the practice of samatha, practice of meditation, practice of concentration. Since these two have similar functions, similar conditions or causes, and similar opposites, they are taken as one mental hindrance in this list. They are always mentioned together, tina and metta, uddhacca and kukkujja. But you all know that tina is one cetasika, metta is another cetasika, uddhacca is another, and kukkujja is yet another cetasika. So if we take each one and identify with the cetasikas, we have 8 nivaranas, 8 mental hindrances, and not 6. Now, we are familiar with 5 mental hindrances, right? Not 6. Now, in the manual, it is said that the first 5 hindrances are the major obstacles to the attainment of the jhanas. The 6th hindrance is the major obstacle to the arising of wisdom. The 6th is avijja. So the avijja is a major hindrance to arising of knowledge or wisdom, and the others are major obstacles to arising of jhanas. So long as a person cannot get free from these first 5 mental hindrances, he cannot hope to get jhana. So it is a prerequisite for attainment of jhanas, that a person be free from these mental hindrances, beginning with kamacchanda. In the description of the first jhana, you find the words viviccewa kamehi, vivicca akusalehi dhammehi. secluded from sensual desires or secluded from the objects of sense desire and secluded from unwholesome mental states. Say a person attains first jhana and so on. So the not the total eradication, but the abandonment, the temporary abandonment of these 5 hindrances is a condition for attainment of jhana. And when a person gets concentration, say more and more concentration, these 5 hindrances tend to disappear, and they will not arise in his mind so long as he has good concentration. So when the mental hindrances are subdued, mind becomes clear and quiet or still. So only then can the penetration into the nature of things, only then can the understanding of the arising and falling of phenomena and so on arise. So it is important that these 5 hindrances are at least pushed back, at least subdued, in order to attain any results, any stages in the practice of meditation. Now, avijja is always with us because it is an anusaya. So we may not be able to get rid of avijja, but if we can get rid of the first 5 mental hindrances, so we are sure to get concentration, and we are sure to get jhana. But that does not mean that we don't need to get rid of them if we want to practice vipassana meditation. So in vipassana meditation also, they have to be subdued. Otherwise, we will not get what is called momentary concentration. Okay, let us identify them. Kamachanda with what? Lobha. Vyapada with dosa. Tina Meda with Tina and Meda. Udhacha Kukucha with Udhacha and Kukucha. Vijikecha with Vijikecha. And Avijja with Moha. Now, next, Anusaya. Latent dispositions. Sometimes they are called latent tendencies. Now, the literal meaning of the word anusaya is to lie along with, to be along with the mental process to which they belong, rising to the surface as obsessions whenever they meet with suitable conditions. So they will arise when there are conditions for them. When there are no conditions for them, they will not arise. But they are said to be dormant. They are said to be latent, say, in our minds. Now, it is important to understand that there are 3 levels of mental defilements. Latent level, and then what is called that? Surfacing level, and then transgression level, right? There are 3 levels. So the first level, the latent level, is the most difficult to get rid of. Even though we do not have lobha now, right now, we will get lobha sometime later, right? So there is always the possibility, liability that we will get lobha, dosa, and so on. Although at the moment we are free from them. So that is what is called anusaya. So they are lying dormant in our minds. They are waiting for a chance to come up. They are waiting for an opportunity for conditions. So when there are the conditions and we do not have yoniso manasikara, they will arise. Now there is a question of what are the anusayas? Do they belong to present or past or future? So there are two opinions. The teachers are not in agreement. Some teachers say that anusaya is actually a future. Anusaya belongs to the future because they are the mental defilements which will arise when there are conditions. So they belong to the future. But there are other teachers who say, no, they can be said to be past, present, and future. Although they do not come to existence. Come to existence means arising, presence, and dissolution. So when we say they come to existence, we mean they have they go through these three stages. Now, anusayas are mentioned as not being in existence, but it is they are somewhere, say, under the surface. So they do not reach the three stages of existence. When they reach the three stages of existence, they no longer are called anusayas. They become kilesas. So now, say, lobha anusaya is in me, but when I really have attachment for something, then that anusaya, that lobha becomes a kilesa. So at the moment of doing good, or when you are doing meritorious deed, akusalas are anusayas. But when they arise in your mind, they are called kilesas. And actually, not only these, say 7 or 6, but every kilesa is latent, right? But only these 7 are called anusaya because they are the most prominent. That means they have strength. They have power. That means they have power to arise when there are conditions. And it is because they are strong that they can arise when there are conditions also. So only these 7 are called anusaya. And when we say the magga eradicates mental defilements, they eradicate these anusaya and not the kilesas, actually. Because when there is kilesa in our mind, there is no magga, there is akusala ceta. So what magga eradicates is not the kilesa in the state of existence, but the kilesa which is latent. So what the magga eradicates is anusaya and not kilesa. But in speaking we say the magga eradicates kilesas. But actually what it eradicates is anusaya, not kilesas. So there are 7 anusayas. The first one is kama raga nusaya, sensual lust. So latent disposition to sensual lust, or latent disposition of sensual lust. And second is bhava raga nusaya, the attachment to existence. And third is patigha nusaya. You remember the word patigha? Where? Akusala chetas. Among the akusala chetas, right? Patigha sampayutta. So patigha means dosa. And number 4, mana nusaya. Pride, conceit. Number 5, dittha nusaya. Ditti anusaya. Wrong view. And number 6, vichikiccha nusaya. Doubt. And number 7, avijja. Ignorance. So these 7 are called anusaya. And in reality, there are 6 anusayas, because kamaraga nusaya and bhavaraga nusaya are lobha, attachment to sensual pleasures or sensual things, and attachment to existence. So there are only 6 anusayas. They are moha, lobha, ditti, mana, dosa, and vichikiccha. Now, sanyojana, fetters or ropes. They are called fetter or ropes because they bind us to this round of rebirths. They will not let us go. So they are called sanyojana. Sanyojana is always compared to a rope. And there are 2 sets of sanyojanas mentioned here. One is according to Suttanta method, and the other one is according to Abhidhamma method. Now it is explained in the manual that the first set of 10 fetters is mentioned both in Sutta Pitaka and in the Abhidhamma Pitaka. The first set of 10. The second set only in the Abhidhamma Pitaka. So the second set is called Sanyojanas according to Abhidhamma, and the first one is called Sanyojana according to Sutta. Now, number 1 is Kama Raga Sanyojana. Now, you already know Kama Raga. So, and Rupa Raga Sanyojana, attachment to Rupa Bhava. Arupa Raga Sanyojana, attachment to Arupa Bhava. Patigha Sanyojana, ill will. Mana Sanyojana, conceit. Ditti Sanyojana, wrong view. Silabbata Paramasa Sanyojana, wrong view. Vichikiccha Sanyojana, vichikiccha. Uddhacca Sanyojana, uddhacca. And avijja Sanyojana, moha. So although there are 10 sanyojanas mentioned here according to Suttanta method, there are only 7 in reality. And so they are moha, uddhacca, lobha, ditti, mana, dosa, and then vichikiccha. The second set is found only in Abhidhamma. And they are number 1, Kama Raga Sanyojana, same. Number 2, Bhava Raga Sanyojana. So number 2 and 3 in the first set are included, and number 2 in the second set. And number 3, Patigha Sanyojana, dosa. Number 4, Mana Sanyojana, conceit. Number 5, Ditti Sanyojana, wrong view. Number 6, Silabbata Paramasa Sanyojana, wrong view. Number 7, Vichikiccha Sanyojana, vichikiccha or doubt. Number 8, Issa Sanyojana. And number 9, Maccariya Sanyojana. They are respectively Issa and Maccariya Cetasikas. And number 10, Avijja Sanyojana. The first and the second are lobha. And the third is dosa. The fourth is mana. The fifth and sixth are ditthi, wrong view. 7, vicikiccha. 8, asa. 9, maccariya. And 10, moha. So there are altogether 8 according to ultimate realities. So they are moha, lobha, ditthi, mana, dosa, asa, maccariya, and vicikiccha. Okay. Now, we go to summary. By way of entity, that means in reality, the taints, floods, bonds and knots are threefold. Kilesa. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, there are no kilesas. Oh, I left it out. Okay. There are 10 kilesas. So, why are they called kilesas? They are called defilements. Because they make our minds dirty. So they are called kilesas. And also, the word kilesa has another meaning, that is infliction. No, affliction, right? Affliction. It torments our minds. So they are called kilesas. So there are two meanings to kilesa. They defile the mind, so they are called kilesa, and they torment the mind, and so they are called kilesas. And the torment is usually given as an explanation of kilesa in the commentaries. And there are 10 of them. Now you look at the book. The first one is lobha. So you know lobha. The second one, dosa. The third one, moha. The fourth one, ditthi, conceit. And the fifth one, vicikiccha, doubt. And the sixth, the fifth one, wrong views. And the sixth, doubt, vicikiccha. And the seventh, thina. 8, uddhacca. 9, ahirika, shamelessness. And 10, anodabba, fearlessness. So these 10 are called kilesas. So we are very familiar with this word kilesa, or its English translation, mental defilements. So there are 10 kilesas. And lobha is lobha, dosa is dosa, moha is moha, mana, ditthi, vicikiccha, thina, uddhacca, ahirika, anodabba. Oh. So there are 10 kilesas, and in reality also there are 10. I left it out in the charts. You'll have to make the chart again. Now, let's go to the summary. By way of entity, the taints, floods, bonds and knots are threefold. So that means according to Chaitasikas, according to ultimate realities, there are only 3 taints, 3 asavas, 3 yogas, and 3 ogas, and 3 yogas and 3 gandhas. And they are lobha, ditthi, and moha. There are 2 kinds of clinging. That means 2 Chaitasikas. What are they? Lobha and deity, and 8 hindrances. So each one of them. Tina and Meda, Udaja and Kokoja taken separately. The latent dispositions are only 6. There are only 6 anusayas. And the fetters can be understood as 9. That means you mix two methods together. So when you mix 2 methods together, you get only 9. Right? You can look at the chart. So the first is 7, the second is 8. But if you shuffle these 2, and you take only what is not been taken yet, you get only how many? 9 sanyojanas. We can say moha, right? And then what? Uddhacca, lobha, deti, mana, dosa, esa, machariya, and vicikiccha, right? The defilements are 10, so they are plain. Thus the compendium of evil is stated as 9-fold. Now, in the chart, in the manual, and if you look at it, now you know how many names a particular Cetasika gets. So the first one you see, greed, right? Lobha. Lobha has how many names? 9 names. And they are asava, oga, yoga, gantha, upadana, nivarana, anusaya, sanyojana, kilesas. All. All that I mentioned in this section. Now, wrong view deity get how many names? 8 names. All except nivarana. And then delusion, moha, how many names? 7 names. All except gantha and upadana. And then dosa, how many names? 5 names. What are they? Gantha, nivarana, anusaya, sanyojana, kilesa. And vicikiccha, doubt, 4 names. Nivarana, anusaya, sanyojana, kilesa. And mana, only 3 names. What? Anusaya, sanyojana, kilesa. And then restlessness, uddhacca. How many names? 3 names. Hindrance, sanyojana, and kilesa. And worry, kukuja. Only 1 name. Hindrance. And ahirika, shamelessness, 1 name, sanyojana. And anottabha, fearlessness, 1 name, sanyojana. And esa, 1 name. Oh, I'm sorry. Shamelessness, kilesa. And fearlessness also, kilesa. And esa, sanyojana. Fetter and machariya, sanyojana. So they have only 1 name. So worry, and then tina, right? Topa, ahirika, anottabha, esa, machariya. They have only 1 name, and the others have more than 1 names. So, in this section, greed gets 9 names, wrong view gets 8 names, and so on. If you remember all this, you can just easily identify them and find out. So, with regard to greed, we don't have to think of anything. We just say all the categories. But what about doubt? Asava? No, right? Oga? No. Yoga? No. Gantha? No. Upadana? No. And then? Hindrance, Nivarana, yes. Anusaya, yes. Sanyojana, yes. Kilesa, yes, like that. So, right. Okay, this is the section on akusala, unwholesome states. So it is good to know these terms so that when you read books on Buddhism, you understand clearly what is meant. Okay.